اللهم رب الناس أذهب الباس اشف أنت الشافي لا شفاء إلا شفاؤك شفاء لا يغادر سقما.
خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. My sincere apologies in the beginning. The sound was muted, so I couldn't hear you. So if you did give salam and what have you, I do apologize. نبدأ إن شاء الله. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبع هداه أما بعد. Then in today's session, أيها الإخوة, we wish to discuss that which is related to something from the health-related advice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the piece of advice that we wish to discuss is a passage that was discussed by Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala towards the beginnings of his Tibb al-Nabawi, which is in essence extracted from Zad al-Ma'ad. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he discusses a number of affairs related to the health of an individual, that which occurs when he comes across bad health and ailments, and how the ulama of the ummah diagnosed those ailments. And no doubt the Prophet ﷺ has informed us of the fact, ما أنزل الله من داء إلا نزل به دواء علمه من علمه وجهله من جهله. That indeed Allah Azza wa Jal did not send down an ailment except that He sent down its cure. It is known by those who are acquainted with it, and those who are unaware of it, are ignorant of it. And so Allah Azza wa Jal has commanded and has prescribed that the believers in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they yatadawaw. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Tadawaw ya ibadallah, wa la tatadawaw bil haram. Prophet ﷺ, he said, seek cure for your ailments, O worshippers of Allah, and do not do so with haram. And so indeed the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam prescribed in a number of ahadith that which is related to health generally and ailments generally, and that which is related to the affair of ailments specifically. That is, that which is related to specific cures for specific ailments. We possibly will not come across the discussion of that. Maybe in a future session we'll discuss in particular the ahadith that speak of specific ailments and their specific cures, or the benefit that is present within certain foodstuff, certain fruit, certain veg, and other things that the Prophet ﷺ prescribed that are and bring about benefit. What we want to discuss, and this passage is a beautiful passage, Ikhwan. In actuality, it's more than one passage, but it is a passage that revolves around the origins of medicine, number one. Number two, as that is the origins of prophetic medicine, and the origins of medicine with those ulama that were known as atibba, or those ulama that were known to be scholars of medicine. They themselves were known to be doctors, as far as medicine had come at that time. And so Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he discusses these affairs in this muqaddimah and this introduction to his great work around the prophetic medicine. And this passage, Ikhwan, it is with understanding this passage and this speech, if we're able to cover it, we understand, and we'll go on to understand when we look at the ahadith, if we did do so in a future session, the ahadith that were collected by Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim and others, and likewise Al-Imam al-Asfahani in Tibb al-Nabawi. He likewise has a Tibb al-Nabawi, not as popular as the Tibb al-Nabawi of Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim. But those things that were prescribed by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam have a connection to these foundations that we're going to look at. And so Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions faslun. He begins by mentioning a chapter or a section. He mentions أما طب الأبدان فإنه نوعان. He said, as far as the tib of the abdan, that is the medicine of the body, that it is of two types. أما فإنه نوعان. نوع قد فطر الله عليه الحيوان ناتقه وبهيمته فهذا لا يحتاج فيه إلى معالجة أو معالجة. He mentions the first. He initiates by saying that medicine of the body is of two types. He said the first is a type that Allah Azza wa Jal has instinctively instilled in both humans and animals. That is, both humans and animals have this type of medicine. It is, in essence, a medical practice. And that is, as we will see, and prior to this, Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim discusses the fact that the greatest medicine that a person can use is that which is related to his dietary affairs, yani the food that he eats. And so he mentions, rahimahullah ta'ala, that the first type of tib, that is the first type or category of medicine, is that medicine that returns back to medicine that each and every one of the animals and the creation have instilled within them. That is, that Allah Azza wa Jal had placed within even the animals that which is instinctive within them, from them consuming, from them eating food and consuming that which is of benefit to them. So this first type of medicine is, in essence, preventative medicine, and that is that a person consumes what is good for him. So he mentions, as it relates to this first category of medicine, he said, وَأَمَّا طِبُّ الْأَبْدَانِ فَإِنَّهُ نَوْعَانِ نوع قد فطر الله عليه الحيوان ناتقه وبهيمه فهذا لا يحتاج فيه إلى معالجة الطبيب. He said that this first category then, the category of medicine that Allah Azza wa Jal has placed instinctively within humans and animals, those who speak and those who don't speak, is that which does not require treatment or the treatment of a physician or a doctor. That is, such as treating hunger with food. And he goes on to mention كتب الجوع والعطش والبرد والتعب وأضدادها وما يزيلها. That is, by treating hunger with its opposite, food, or by treating مثلا thirst by drinking, or cold, that a person's temperature changes, which can cause, of course, ailments, that one treats that with warming oneself with warmth, and that one treats fatigue with rest. And so this is something that is, of course, instinctive within human beings and within animals even, that they have naturally been created to incline towards that which is of benefit for them and for their well-being and their health. That is, animals and humans alike. And then he goes on to mention, نعم, he mentions والثاني ما يحتاج إلى فكر وتأمل. He said the second type of tib, the second type of medicine is that which requires fikr, that which requires consideration and fikr, or thought and consideration. And that is, as he goes on to mention, كدفع الأمراض المتشابهة الحادثة في المزاج. That is, such as treating complex diseases that arise within the temperament or the mizaj of an individual. And this term, mizaj, Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he discusses it and mentions it quite regularly. The mizaj is a reference to the the homeostasis of the body. That is the equilibrium that the body should be upon, and the right balance and the right chemical balance within the body, and that which is related to the full functioning of the organs, and other than that. So the mizaj, and he will go on to discuss the different categories related to the mizaj. He said, so this second type of medicine is the medicine that returns back to dealing with the mizaj, looking at the complex diseases that arise from a change in this mizaj, or this homeostasis that is present within the body. It causes it to deviate away from its balance, either towards heat, and this is something that we again will look at, and he goes on to discuss, either towards heat or cold or dryness or moisture. He said, imma ila harara أو برودة أو يبوسة أو رطوبة. يعني that the ailments that cause, or the ailments that issue from a change in the homeostasis of the body, return either back to heat-related ailments, cold-related ailments, يعني dry-related ailments, or moisture-related ailments. These four elements, ikhwan, are one of the areas of discussion among the atibba and the ulama from among the ummah, those who have specialism in the area of tib and medicine. They discuss the four characteristics of the mizaj, the four characteristics of the homeostasis of the body. Some of those areas, or some of the homeostasis and the balance within the body, returns back to heat, some returns back to cold, some returns back to dryness within the body, and that is a reference to certain organs, and some return back to moisture. And as we're going to see, they are likewise a discussion of four other areas that, when they come together, make the foundation of the usul of tib and nabawi, and the tib that was practiced by the ulama within our ummah. And so he mentions then, he said, وَأَمَّا مَا يَتَرَتَّبُ مِنَ الْإِثْنَيْنِ أو ما يترتب من اثنين منهما, or that which comes about on the basis of a combination between two of these. Again, we're going to go on to see that ailments issue from, or ailments are referred to as those ailments that are simplistic ailments, or ailments that are considered complex ailments. Yani, when one looks at simplistic ailments, they are ailments that return back to one of these four characteristics, either heat-related or cold-related, or dryness or moisture, yani excess moisture. So excess heat, excess cold, excess dryness, or excess moisture within the body, or a combination of these. And so the ailments that would occur on the basis of one of these four, or a combination of them. And so that in essence makes 8 possible combinations in terms of ailments. So it is either heat with dryness, heat with moisture, cold with dryness, or cold with moisture. These are 8 combinations, simple and complex, that Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim will go on to discuss in that which is to come, bi'idhnillah, from the discussion. He mentions وَهِيَ نَوْعَانِ إِمَّا مَادِّيَّةً وَإِمَّا كَيْفِيَّةً. He said, and these diseases are of 2 types. That is, these diseases that he had previously mentioned here, they too are of 2 types. They are either material, madiyah, that is caused by the accumulation of a particular substance. So within the body, there is the accumulation of a particular substance, and they bring about an ailment that is madiyya, that is referred to as an ailment that is madiyya or material. And then he mentions or kayfiyya, which is a qualitative ailment that causes a change within the body, and that is caused ordinarily by a change in the quality without necessarily the accumulation of material or excess material within the body, without the accumulation of something alien to the body in terms of something being accumulated within the body, that excess leading to illness. This second type is kayfiyya or qualitative, that is a change in quality within the homeostasis of the body leads to this disease that is present within the body. He mentions أعني إما أن يكون بانصباب مادة أو بحدوث كيفية. And clarifying what he intends and what he means. He said that is either these ailments have either come about, and this is the difference between them, that they have either come about because of insibab madda, that is the material diseases come about because of a substance. Yani there is a substance that is present that accumulates within the body that causes this disease, or by huduthi kayfiyya, that is something has changed within the temperament of the body that has caused this ailment. And he mentions والفرق بينهما أن الأمراض الكيفية تكون بعد زوال المواد التي أوجبتها فتزول موادها فيبقى أثرها كيفية في المزاج، والأمراض المادة أسبابها معها تمدها، وإذا كان سبب المرض مع فالنظر في السبب ينبغي أن يقع أولا ثم في المرض ثانيا ثم في الدواء ثالثا. He mentions that the difference between the two of them is that the qualitative disease, it persists even after the removal of the substance that caused them. And so that is, there may be a change in the something within the homeostasis within the body. After the effect or the excess has removed, the effect may still remain. The effect may still remain. As far as the second type, which is madiyya, then if that madda, or if that thing that has been introduced to the body is removed, then the ailment leaves with the disappearance of that thing that was added to the body. So one revolves around a change in the homeostasis within the body, and the second returns back to the fact that something was introduced to the body. Something occurred within the body that caused this change in the state of the individual. He said the remedy as it relates to these types, that is the remedy as it relates to the mawad or to the amrad al-madiyya, that is those ailments that are not related to a change in the homeostasis within the body, but ailments that relate to something being introduced to the body that causes this ailment, is by removing the thing that has been introduced first and foremost, and then to look at the ailment and the illness that it has caused, and then to look at the treatment of the ailment. And so when it is a change in the homeostasis within the body, the only thing that needs to be done is to look at regulating the homeostasis and returning it back to its origin. And that is, of course, by detecting what has changed. Whereas with these types of illnesses, they may require يعني the removal of something first and foremost. And then he mentions a third type of ailment, and that is that he said, rahimahullah ta'ala, this third type of ailment he mentions, أو الأمراض اللائية, الأمراض الآلائية, that is the amrad that return back to the alat of the body. That is, they are, if you like, structural diseases or diseases that return back to the structure that is present in the body, from the limbs and the organs, the physical structural organs within the body. And that is that the organs have altered. The organs have been altered. Organs have changed. And so he mentions, rahimahullah ta'ala, وهي التي تخرج العدو عن هيئته إما في شكل أو تجويف أو مجرى أو خشونة أو ملاسة أو عدد أو عظم أو وضع أو غير ذلك. He mentions, and that is that the organs within the body have been affected and changed. Certain organs, physical organs. And so, of course, when we're looking at the organs, we're looking at the lungs, you're looking at the pancreas, the spleen, the liver, the kidneys, the bones, the brain, the heart, and other than that. That is then that those organs have been altered. Either they have been altered in shape, or there has occurred a cavity within them, or some passage within them, or there is now roughness in an area that should be soft and smooth, or smoothness in something that should be harder, or they have increased in number, yani that is that they have multiplied in some way, or that one of the bones of the body has been affected or changed position. So when these organs are properly assembled, the union then is referred to as ittisal. He mentions rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, فإن هذه الأعضاء إن تألفت وكان منها البدن البدن نعم سمي تأليفها يعني سمي تأليفها اتصالا. That is, when these organs and when these affairs are all united and they are within the body, then their union is referred to as ittisal. That is, the organs of the body are all together, they're operating correctly, the homeostasis is good. This is referred to as ittisal. يعني that everything is operating and functioning as it should. He mentioned والخروج عن الاعتدال فيه يسمى تفرق الاتصال. يعني يسمى تفرق الاتصال. He said, while if we have a change from the balance that should be present within those things and those limbs and those organs, then it is referred to as tafarruq al-ittisal. Yani there is a disconnection in the manner in which those things should be united, should be joined together, and should work yani optimally. He goes on to mention rahimahullah ta'ala, نعم, he mentions أو الأمراض العامة التي تعم المتشابهة والآلية. He mentions, or we likewise have those diseases that are considered general diseases, and those general diseases affect both the temperament and the structural balance. And so these general diseases are generally combinations of what has been mentioned previously. Now, and so Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim then, he goes on to discuss the types of diseases then in detail, and the origins of these types of diseases and how they are detected. And this is how, when we're looking at prophetic medicine, how one who is considered a tabib within Islam and within the deen, yani those people of knowledge who are considered atibba, they are those who are acquainted with the methods of diagnosis. How does one diagnose an illness? What is the problem with the individual? Of course, Ikhwan, we're not speaking here of modern day medicine. We're speaking here of medicine or medicine as it was understood among the Salaf of this Ummah and among the earlier generations from our ulama. Now, he mentions then, so the amrad al-mutashabiha, that which is referred to as al-amrad al-mutashabiha, that is the varying types of diseases that occur within the body, they are as follows. He mentions the first of them, وهي التي يخرج بها المزاج عن الاعتدال، وهذا الخروج يسمى مرضا بعد أن يضر بالفعل أمراض إضرارا محسوسا. He said that when we're looking at types of diseases, we're looking at diseases first and foremost that return back to diseases of imbalance. Diseases of imbalance are those diseases that disrupt the temperament or the mizaj, the equilibrium of the mizaj. That is the equilibrium of those elements that we mentioned earlier, of cold, of heat and cold, dryness and moisture within the body. And this change within the mizaj and this imbalance within the mizaj, when it becomes disrupted, then the temperament equilibrium changes, and this deviation away from its balance is referred to as disease. And that is, as Imam Ibn al-Qayyim here, he mentions, that is وهذا الخروج يسمى مرضا بعد أن يضر بالفعل إضرارا محسوسا. That is, this deviation of the body away from its homeostasis and away from what it is ordinarily acquainted with, and how it ordinarily, how it ordinarily occurs and how it ordinarily operates. This deviation away from that balance is referred to as a disease only when there is noticeable harm. That is, we observe that there is a problem. We observe and we can feel the ailment. That noticeable harm then is what is now referred to as a disease because of the fact that the harm is noticeable, not because of the fact that something is just occurring but we don't actually feel it or notice it. But in the reality of the affair is that something is taking place within the body. There are changes that are taking place within the body. That is not what is here referred to as a disease if it is not noticeable. But when it is noticeable, then it is referred to as disease as soon as it becomes noticeable. And so he goes on to mention that they are وَهِيَ عَلَى ثَمَانِيَةِ أَضْرُبٍ, that they are of 8 types or 8 kinds. He mentions أربعة بسيطة وأربعة مركبة. 4 that are simple and 4 that are compound. 4 that are simple ailments or simple manifestations of straying away from the equilibrium and the temperaments equilibrium, these 4 things that are present within the body, straying away from the temperament and the balance of the temperament. There are of 4 types. Basita, which is simple, and the second are murakkaba, that is compound. What it is intended by murakkaba, at-tarkib, is when more than one thing comes together to make a more complex or a compound third thing. And so here he mentions there are 4 types, and those 4 types return back to what was mentioned previously. He mentions rahimahullah, فالبسيطة البارد والحار والرطب واليأس أو واليابس عفوا. He mentions so the basita, or the simple, they return back to cold, hot or heat, moisture and dry. These things return back to a change, so either in temperature within the body or a change and affecting the moisture within the body, And of course, the moisture within the body is of types. We have bile, phlegm, we have mucus. There are varying types of moisture within the body, and then dryness within the body. He mentions, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, وَالْمُرَكَّبْ أو المركبة, as far as the compound, then they are combinations of hot and moist, heat and moisture, heat and dry, cold and moist, cold and dry. And then he goes on to mention rahimahullah ta'ala, وهي إما أن تكون بانصباب مادة أو بغير انصباب مادة، وإن لم يضر المرض بالفعل يسمى خروجا عن الاعتدال صحة. He mentions, وإن لم يضر المرض بالفعل يسمى خروجا عن الاعتدال صحة. He mentions rahimahullah ta'ala that these ailments, then these 8 combinations, these may occur due to either material accumulation within the body, there is something that is accumulated within the body, something external to the body, or something that is building up within the body, or without it. It may occur without any accumulation within the body. If the imbalance does not cause harm, it is merely referred to and called a deviation from balance, but it is not called, it's still called and referred to as siha. It's still considered well, even if there is something of a change within the balance, but it is not something that is sensed. It doesn't detect it, it doesn't feel it, it feels well. And so up to that point, we have an indication of the fact that unless it is detected, it is referred to Islamically as siha. Unless there is something that is sensed and observed with the senses. As long as a person remains well, feels well, everything is okay, doesn't feel poorly, then he is considered upon siha. He mentions rahimahullah, وَلِلْبَدَنِ ثلاثة أحوال: حال طبيعية، وحال خارجة عن الطبيعة، وحال متوسط بين الأمرين. And so the body has and goes through, he mentioned, states. It has a natural state, and that is a state in which the body is healthy and there's nothing wrong with the individual. Then there is an unnatural state, and that is when the body is diseased. And then there is an intermediate state, and that is a transition between health and disease. And so he may not necessarily be sick per se, but there may be feelings of disruption of the equilibrium within the body. I don't feel my normal self. And so these shifts within the body are shifts that are based upon changes within the equilibrium. Those changes may be slight, but they may be sufficient to cause the individual to have feelings of being unwell and of losing his normal state and his well-being. But this ordinarily occurs in stages or over a period, since opposites do not shift abruptly without mediation. There is usually something that is causing this change and this shift and this movement from one state to the next. So he mentions rahimahullah ta'ala, فالأولى بها يكون البدن صحيحا، والثانية بها يكون مريضا، والحال الثالثة هي متوسطة بين الحالتين، فإن الضد لا ينتقل إلى ضده إلا بمتوسط. وسبب خروج البدن عن طبيعته إما من داخله لأنه مركب من الحار والبارد والرطب واليابس، وإما من خارج لأن ما يلقاه قد يكون موافقا وقد يكون غير موافق. He mentions rahimahullah ta'ala. Here now he discusses the causes of disease. He mentions then that when we're looking then at the affair of ailments within the body and the things that cause disease, he mentions that the body may deviate from its natural state due to internal causes, that is, causes within its composition, the composition of hot, cold, moisture, and dry elements, and external causes such as exposure to something that is compatible with him or incompatible. So there is an external exposure to something that is incompatible with him and with his homeostasis and his mizaj, and that has caused some effect within the body. And so these varying things lead to varying types of ailments. He himself, rahimahullah ta'ala, goes on to mention, والضرر الذي يلحق الإنسان قد يكون من سوء المزاج بخروجه عن الاعتدال، وقد يكون من فساد في العضو، وقد يكون من ضعف في القوة أو الأرواح الحاملة لها، ويرجع ذلك إلى زيادة ما الاعتدال في عدم زيادته. He mentions that indeed the affair then of these changes that occur within the body, this harm comes either from or either occurs because of internal issues, that is the composition of hot and cold, and heat and cold, that is the temperature within the body, or the moisture within the body, or the opposite of that, which is the dryness. There is a change in the balance within those things, or it is an external cause. That is something that is an external incompatible influence has affected the body. And so this may come from, and he lists a number of them. And he may come from bad temperament, that is deviation away from the balance, or corruption within the organs, or weakness within the faculties, or within the vital spirit, that is the arwah al-hamila, the vital spirit. And this is something that Ibn al-Qayyim, he discusses when he looks at the fact that the spirit of an individual has an effect upon his health. And this is, we'll go on to mention it, that the spirit of an individual affects the health of an individual. He, because of how he is and how his resolve is, there may come to him an ailment, but he quickly is cured quickly from it and is affected by his spirit. And there was something of an experiment that took place a number of years ago, that something similar was done on a number of individuals, where they took some individuals who had an ailment and they were given a placebo, or they were given they were given injections. They were told it was some new miracle cure and how it's amazing and what have you. And they were very high spirited. They were eager and they were excited to take it. When they took it, the majority of those who took that injection claimed, and they said that they felt a lot better afterwards. Some of them felt like they were cured. It was definitely impressive, and the improvement is noticeable, and so on. And there was absolutely nothing in the injection whatsoever. And just a saline injection, nothing in it. And it was an experiment that was done to see and to test the spirit of an individual and his optimism in relation to his ailment. Does it have an effect upon the cure that a person that he receives and that he finds within himself? And it most definitely does. And Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentions that وَالْأَرْوَاحِ الْحَامِلَةِ لَهَا, that is the spirit that a person has that carries him when he has those ailments. He mentioned ويرجع ذلك إلى زيادة ما الاعتدال في عدم زيادته أو نقصان ما الاعتدال في عدم نقصانه أو تفرق ما الاعتدال في اتصاله أو اتصال ما الاعتدال في تفرقه أو امتاد ما الاعتدال في انقباضه أو خروج ذي وضع وشكل عن وضعه وشكله بحيث يخرجه أو يخرجه عن اعتداله. He mentions رحمه الله تعالى. So these affairs, they manifest either because there is excess where correct balance requires moderation. And so there is excessiveness where if you wish to maintain a correct balance within the body, then this thing should be done moderately, or it should be present within the body with moderation. Or there is deficiency where balance requires sufficiency, like the deficiency with certain minerals or with certain vitamins within the body, vitamin D and vitamin B and vitamin C and other vitamins that are essential. With their absence, we have varying types of ailments, or of certain minerals such as calcium, which they are now saying that studies show that a deficiency in calcium has been one of the causes that has led to Parkinson's disease. And so we have then these differing states that affect the mizaj, that affect the balance that needs to be present within the body. That is deficiency where balance would require sufficiency, excess where balance would require moderation, disconnection where balance would require connection, or expansion where balance would require contraction. And so if you look at all of these scenarios that Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentioned, there are ailments related to all of them. Excess, inflammation within the body leads to varying ailments. Inflammation, the people who suffer mathalan from, or individuals who suffer from psoriasis, for example, they suffer because of the presence of excess in relation to skin cells. There is an increase in the skin cells within a particular area, and that they're multiplying in an unnatural way. That has its cause. Balance requires moderation. How does one regulate moderation? It is by detecting the cause of the multiplication. Deficiency. So, mathalan, as we mentioned, deficiency with certain vitamins and minerals, particularly mathalan vitamin D, which is responsible for many of the healing properties within the body. When we're looking at excess within the body, that could likewise return back to inflammation within the body. Inflammation within the body is excess, and it leads to numerous other conditions, as it can lead to varying types of pain, back pain, mathalan. In some instances, inflammation leads to back pain because it causes a nerve to be impinged. When the nerve is impinged, it suffers from back pain. That impinged nerve occurs in some instances from inflammation. Likewise, disconnection, where balance requires connection. And so we have, for example, glaucoma, which is that which is related to the cornea of the eye. There is something of disconnection that occurs within it. Or expansion, when balance requires the opposite. Displacement of an organ from its natural shape or its natural place. And so there are certain heart-related ailments that return back to displacement of an organ, or the organ, in this case the heart, from its normal shape, from its natural shape. And so when the heart is inflamed, that causes and leads to certain types of ailments. Yani, there are diseases related to the heart that, because of it being inflamed, because of the fact that it is swollen, it has lost its natural يعني pear shape, or the shape of apple type shape, or the normal shape of the heart. It now just becomes a round organ because it has expanded and it is now misshaped. Because of it, there are certain bodily related diseases. Because of its expansion, the heart is unable now to to pump blood around the body sufficiently, because it has now weakened. The muscles within the heart have now weakened. The membrane around the heart is now become thin. And so there are certain ailments that return back to displacement of organs. Then Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he discusses the job then of the tabib. What is the job of the tabib? Yani, the doctor, what is the job of the tabib? He said, الطبيب هو الذي يفرق ما يضر بالإنسان جمعه أو يجمع فيه ما يضره تفرقه وينقص منه ما يضره زيادته ويزيد فيه ما يضره نقصه فيجلب الصحة المفقودة أو يحفظها بالشكل والشبه ويدفع العلة الموجودة بالضد والنقيض. This is a highly beneficial small section, but it is relative to the role of the tabib. He said the tabib, in actuality, or the physician, is the one that is skilled in separating what harms the body when it is combined with the body. He is skilled in combining what harms the body when it is separated from the body. He is skilled in reducing what harms the body in excess. And he is skilled in increasing what harms the body if it is deficient. Thus, he restores lost health. Yani, majorly important. He mentions he restores lost health and preserves it. He restores lost health and preserves it through using these proper measures. And these measures, ikhwan, is what the tabib studies for. He understands. Some of it is with khibra, with experience. Some of it is from that which the Messenger of Allah sallam has laid down and mentioned in some of those ahadith al-sahiha. And some return back to the doctors and the atibba, benefiting one from another, benefiting from good practice. And likewise, particularly being familiar with the nature of the mizaj of the human being, yani the homeostasis, how it should be. And so he expels, and this is an important point he mentions here, he expels existing disease using opposites. He expels existing diseases using opposites and antidotes. And he prevents illnesses through proper regime, through himya. And so this statement then indicates the fact that there are certain things, for example, that is curing ailments through dealing with opposites would be to look, for example, at the fact that the ailment, for example, if it is one that returns back to phlegm within the body or to an increase in moisture within the body, then what are the things that have been prescribed that absorb moisture, that reverse moisture? مثلا قسط الهند, يعني the قسط الهند, or the wood the Prophet ﷺ prescribed as a cure. It is something that is ground down, it becomes a powder, and it is used within the body to cure certain ailments. Of course, those are things, black seed, these are things that reverse the moisture and remove the moisture from the body if the ailment is moisture related. Then we find numerous ahadith concerning varying types of fruit, varying types of veg, those fruit and veg that relate, for example, to eye ailments or to ailments within the body that the Prophet ﷺ, as well, we don't have time to discuss, but perhaps in another session, the Prophet ﷺ prescribed al-kama'a, which is truffle. Prophet ﷺ, he said that there is in it a cure for an eye disease. And that eye disease is probably more resemblant to a mushroom type form of vegetation. It is used in a particular way to cure an eye disease. So these things that have been mentioned that are helpful and beneficial, honey, beneficial. And then there are practices that are beneficial. Cupping, for example, blood cupping, it is beneficial in lessening the iron within the body. And there are ailments that issue from excess iron within the body. When one is cupped, it lessens the iron that is present within the body. And there are numerous benefits, of course, with cupping. This is not the place for the discussion of that. But Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, then he mentions that the tabib is the one that he prescribes a regime after first diagnosing what the problem is, where the problem lies, and how to deal with what is present by reversing the problem. Either it is a simple ailment that returns back to one of the four: heat, cold, any temperature, or moisture or dryness within the body. And so it is reversed by using one of its opposites, or it is a complex disease, and that likewise is reversed by using one of its opposites. This reversal is that, again, returns back to one's knowledge of what is beneficial for what things. Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, then, he mentions, فَكَانَ مِنْ هَدِيهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم فعل التداوي في نفسه. He mentions that from the guidance of the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم is that he would himself cure and seek treatment for himself, and he would seek treatment for his family. And this was from the guidance of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he goes on to mention that this was likewise from the practice of the companions of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But he said, ولكن لم يكن من هديه ولا هدي أصحابه استعمال هذه الأدوية المركبة التي تسمى الأقرباذين. He said, بل كان غالب أدويتهم بالمفردات. He said it was, however, after mentioning that it was from the guidance of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam to seek treatment for himself, for his family, he mentioned, but however, it was neither his practice nor the practice of his companions that they would use complex compound medicines that are referred to as or he refers to them here as أقرباذين. This أقرباذين is these are complex or compound medicines, combinations. And the أقرباذين are combinations because of the fact that the ailment was and requires that combination. And then he goes on to mention, and this is a beautiful point, Ikhwan, indicating the differences between us and them. He mentions, بل كان غالب أدويتهم بالمفردات. He said, the majority of their medicine was بالمفردات, was single ingredient treatments. Why? He said, وَرُبَّمَا أَضَافُوا إِلَى الْمُفْرَدِ مَا يُعَاوِنُهُ أو يكسر صورته وهذا غالب طب الأمم على اختلاف أجناسهم من العرب والترك وأهل البوادي قاطبة وإنما عني بالمركبات الروم واليونانيون أكثر. He mentions a very, very important point, Ikhwan. He said that the majority then of the treatments at the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the time of the companions were single ingredient treatments. Why? He goes on to mention, before mentioning why, he mentions they would sometimes add a complementary substance to mitigate the intensity of the that single ingredient or to enhance its effectiveness. And so they would work and concentrate upon one ingredient for the ailment. He goes on to mention that this in actuality was common among many nations, among the Arab, the Turks, and among the desert dwellers, among the Bedouins. But then he goes on to mention, while the Greeks and the Byzantinians, they primarily relied on compound medicine. Why? Why would they primarily rely upon compound medicine? He mentions, after mentioning the fact that even the Indians would generally, and Indian medicine is an ancient medicine, even the Indian medicine relied for the most part upon single ingredient remedies. And he goes on to mention the fact that when those who used complex compounds, when the ailments of the earlier generations, those who used single ingredient remedies, return back ordinarily to simple ailments. They were ailments that returned back to heat, cold, moisture, or dryness. And so in order to oppose it and to heal it, they would use single compound medicine. While when the diet of those who came later was compound and complex, the ailments that issued from their diet similarly had to be compound and complex, became compound and complex. And that is one of the reasons that the earlier generations would use these compound combinations of treatment, because things had changed as time had gone on. And so he later discusses, and there is much, Ikhwan, that may be discussed, but unfortunately, due to time and what have you, it is not something, Ikhwan, that we're gonna probably have to skip some of what we wanted to mention. He likewise discusses the fact that many diseases can be treated with diet. Many diseases can be treated with diet because of the fact that good diet, if one eats from the tayyibat, from the good things, there is present within that. Of course, our problem in our time is good things are not readily available. What I mean by that is people who are on the go, on the move, and he passes or pops into his local shop, and the best thing that's probably in there is water. Everything else is sweet, sugar, processed, the bulk. Unless you manage to find a grocery store where you're able to buy something that is good. This is one of the problems, one of the causes of the issues that we have with our fast-moving lives, 9 times out of 10, because of the fact that we're on the go, we're not able to, we tell ourselves, we're not able to take the time out to eat well and to find that which is good and tayyib. But Allah Azza wa Jal has placed on earth and within the dunya tayyibat and good things, which if we consume them, then all of our ailments, they themselves are cure to many of the ailments within the body. a good diet, good food contains that which opposes heat, contains that which opposes cold, contains that which opposes dryness and moisture. And so these things are present within food if one eats well. If that is not good enough, then one looks at the type of ailment and then uh, the uh, the uh, the necessary response to that ailment by way of what is legislated or what has been advised by the people of knowledge with tib, then they return back to looking at the origin of the problem and then diagnosing that origin. There's much to be mentioned here, Ikhwan. We'll try and round up, inshallah. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, in any case, he discusses the manner in which medicine has developed and what has caused, or what is it that the modern day medicine, and naturally modern day medicine, him speaking at his time, what has caused the modern day medicine to reach where it has reached. He mentioned that they rely upon a number of things. They rely on observation and experience. And that observation and experience starts with becoming proficient with using single ingredient treatments. And they went on to develop off the back of that single or using those single ingredient treatments. He mentions that the atibba, or the people of medicine, they became one of three schools. Those who practiced natural medicine and they studied they studied that which is related to the varying types of cure, that which has been mentioned by the varying, what he refers to as arbab, at-tajarub, those who are skilled with experience from the atibba. They generally work with single dose or single ingredient cures, single ingredient remedies. That was the case with the majority of the atibba. He mentioned وهم أحد فرق الطب الثلاث. He said, and they are one of three schools. And then he goes on to discuss the nature of medicine and disease. And then he mentions generally that present day medical understanding returns then back to, number one, he mentions qiyas. Number two, he mentions tajriba. Qiyas being analogical reasoning, that is not qiyas with the shar or with the text, not analogy with the text, but qiyas with the experimenting with certain remedies that have been beneficial for such and such. When this resembles that, and when this has its basis in that, the same thing that this had its basis in, they would make that analogy and use a similar type of medicine, similar type of cure. Tajriba, number two, that is the experience that they have between them. They would exchange their experiences with curing such and such or curing such and such. Likewise, he mentions, and this is something that did occur among them, ilham. In some instances, just inspiration. And that inspiration led to a beneficial cure. Similarly, some have, as occurs in some of the books of Tib, the earlier books of Tib, have used manamat even. And that is that they had a dream that such and such is beneficial with such and such. They use it, tried it, and it worked. That is not that manamat and dreams are a source of Tib or of medicine. Abadan, I'm not advocating that. But this is what Ibn al-Qayyim mentions. This is and has occurred in the past. Those are some of the things that have actually have occurred. And then he mentions observations likewise with animals. And he mentions such as cats instinctively licking oil when or in order to counteract poison. Or what has been observed, as he mentions, snakes, for example, rubbing their eyes against a particular leaf to restore vision. Or seagulls drinking seawater when or in order to relieve constipation. And so these are some of the things that Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentions. They were observed by the atibba, and that observation led to them experimenting with certain things, certain types of medicine, and certain things that are used as a cure, and those cures being seen to be beneficial. And so he goes on to mention that one can never, even with all that has been said and done, then one can never rule out that which is related to the great benefit that is present within the spiritual cures that have been legislated by the Messenger of Allah, by Allah Azza wa Jalla and His Messenger. These spiritual cures, ikhwan, the cures that return back to deen and returning to Allah Azza wa Jalla, and turning, and since this is a form in essence and an act of ibadah, these are all acts of ibadah. And so that one turns and returns back to Allah Azza wa Jal in relation to those heart-based remedies. And those remedies that return back to the heart. Those remedies that are connected, mathalan, to at-tawakkul ala Allah. No doubt we hold on to the means, and that is from tawakkul. Relying upon Allah, we hold on to the means to an end, something that is beneficial, but we connect ourselves to Allah Azza wa Jal, rely upon Allah. And it has been seen with this type of tawakkul ala Allah and iltija ila Allah, which is another thing that he mentions. That is that a person, he seeks refuge in Allah Azza wa Jal. He has humility and submission before Allah Azza wa Jal. Sincere supplication, dua, tawbah and repentance, seeking forgiveness, istighfar, and other acts similar to this, and giving aid, seeking relief through giving aid, giving charity, aiding the distressed, aiding those in need. These have been the cause of many individuals' cure from certain ailments. And if you look at the hadith of Abi Sa'id, when the companions were going through a valley and the head or the leader of that valley was stung by a scorpion or something of that nature, that Abu Sa'id, it was cured with the recitation of Fatiha. And how did the recitation of Fatiha remove this harmful poison from the body of the individual? How did it have an effect in doing so? He was cured, completely. And so we can never and should never, and we ordinarily put it at the back of the list of things that we should do when we have sickness and ailment, while it should be at the front of the list. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned and advised one of his companions who was sick. He said, دع يدك على الذي تألم من جسدك وقل بسم الله ثلاثا ثم قل أعوذ بالله وقدرته ثم قل 7 مرات أعوذ بالله وقدرته من شر ما أجد وأهادر. Prophet ﷺ, he said, put your hand on the part of your body that gives you pain and say 3 times Bismillah. That is, seek the aid of Allah in the name of Allah. And then say 7 times أعوذ بالله وقدرته من شر ما أجد وأهادر. I seek refuge in Allah and in His qudra, His ability, from the evil that I feel and what I find within myself. These were cures that the Prophet ﷺ taught his companions and taught them to have firm resolve and strong spirit. and that يعني their firm resolve was a part of their cure. And no doubt the natural disposition is strong, is rigorous. And so we should never rule that out when we're looking at the affair of the cure. We'll mention and we'll round up with one last passage from Al-Imam Ibn Al-Qayyim, an important passage, Ikhwan, that he discusses here the speech, and perhaps in a future sitting we can expound upon it. But he discusses the statement of Imam Abu Abdullah al-Maziri. He mentioned that Abu Abdullah al-Maziri was from among the people of knowledge who was affected by an ailment, and because of individuals who gave him bad advice, he was he had firm resolve that he's going to study medicine himself. And he studied that which was present at his time from the books of the scholars of medicine at that time, and he became proficient in Tib al-Nabawi, and the texts that return back to that, and he was and he wrote authorships around that. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he quotes from then Abu Abdullah al-Maziri, and we'll run it with this passage. He mentions rahimahullah ta'ala al-amrad imtilaiya. He said, first and foremost, diseases that are caused by humors. And this here, he discusses and speaks of the four, what are known as the four humors. And this was a study that was present from ancient times, even from the times of the Greeks and others, that they would look at medicine from a standpoint of studying what is known as the four humors. The four humors is a reference, and of course, here we're looking at the compounds that are present within the body, in the makeup of the body, that return back in some ways to what we mentioned earlier: heat, cold, dry, and moisture. But this is another area, though it is for the most part moisture based. But they refer to and they discuss that which is related to al-amrad al-imtilaiya. The imtilaiya is a reference to these four humors. And what is intended by the humors are that which returns back to four colors. That is red, yellow, green, and black. And they say that these four colors represent four of the main types of component or makeup within the body, since the bulk of the body is water. Bulk of the body is water. And so they say these four humors are, number one, damawiya. Or we'll read the statement of Al-Imam Ibn Al-Qayyim. He mentions وإما أن تكون دموية أو صفراوية أو بلغية أو بلغمية عفوا أو سوداوية الرابع. He said that these four humors then, they are either damawiya, which is the red humor that is blood related, or safrawiya, which is the yellow humor, which is bile related, or balghamiya, which is the green humor, which is phlegm and mucus related, or sawdawiya, or it is the black humor, which is black bile related. As far as black bile is concerned, then in modern day medicine, there are those who say that there is no such thing as black bile, while in earlier medicine, they saw that black bile found its origin within the gut. That is, black bile found its origin within the spleen in particular. And thus they would refer to each of these, the blood related, they would give them names. And so blood they would refer to as sanguine. Sanguine because of the fact that sanguine is is one that has something of a optimistic warmth that this person has. And they say that that issues from the spleen. This is something that is present within the spleen. That occurred even prior to prior to early medicine within Islam. So, and this is actually, in actuality, something that is present in a hadith. That is, them saying that when one is sanguine, these are ailments or these are conditions that issue from certain body parts and that they cause a change in the psychological state of an individual. And so it may be strange to know that there are ailments that may cause optimism within an individual or a cheerful disposition, even though he suffers from an ailment. And as we mentioned, there is a hadith that indicates that there are certain body parts that certain characters issue from. There are certain body parts that certain characters issue from. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentions inna al-aqla fil qalb. He said that indeed al-aql, intellect, is in the heart. He said wal-rahmatu fil kabid. He said and mercy is in the kabid. Mercy is in the liver. He likewise mentioned wal-ra'fatu fil tihal. He said and compassion is present within the spleen. Compassion is present within the spleen. وَالنَّفْسُ فِي الرِّئَةِ. He said, and the soul is in a ri'ah. The soul is in the lungs. And this is possibly why we see individuals when they pass away that there is this breathing and this breath or this final breath that is taken. This hadith, incidentally, is declared Hasan by Sheikh Nasruddin al-Albani, and it is present in the Adab al-Mufrad, Sahih Adab al-Mufrad of Imam al-Bukhari. And so there are body parts that it is known are connected to certain character within the human being. So these four humors then, red, which is blood related, yellow, which is bile related, green, which is phlegm related, and black, which is black bile. So yellow is yellow bile, and that is the bile. If a person has ever thrown up, then if one throws up and empties his stomach, then one can be so sick that the only thing that comes up is bile. And so bile is some of the fluid or one of the fluids that exist within the body, yellow bile. And it is oftentimes acidic. And so when acidity now in present day medicine is known to cause certain ailments within the body, we can therefore see that this study of the humors, blood related, of course, there are fluids within the body and the moisture of the body, but it's a study of the moisture within the body, blood related, yellow bile related, which is, of course, the bile that usually exists within the gut. The phlegm related, which is the green humor, which is phlegm or mucus. And we have the black humor, which is black bile, as we mentioned, that is present within the spleen. And so they used to associate certain certain moods with these humors. As we mentioned, the black bile was referred to, or was used to refer to that which is sanguine or warm optimism. Phlegm was associated with coldness, and mucus with coldness and a steady or slow temperament. And so they would look also at the character of the individual. How is he acting? And this will give rise to aiding with coming to a diagnosis on where the problem may lie. Sadness is likewise associated, just as Afwan, Ikhwana, correction. Blood is related to the affair of, or they say, warmth and sadness or introspection is related to black bile, which is why it correlates with compassion being from the spleen, or existing within the spleen, as the Prophet ﷺ said. Because compassion, yani these feelings of being introspective and sadness and reflection, again, are yani from the characters that are related to yani reflection and being introspective, just as compassion is one that causes, or it stems in essence from a person reflecting upon himself, looking at someone else's condition and desiring for them what they would ordinarily desire for themselves. So it starts with introspection. And so the humors then again are related to one's diagnosis in with the ailments and the varying types of disease. And so they would use a certain type of medicine, and we'll round up with this final mention, and that is that Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentions that if it is one of the blood-related diseases, this is as it relates to these four now: blood, yellow bile, phlegm, black bile. He said if the disease is blood-related, then they would cure it, or one of the main cures that they would focus upon would be blood cupping. If it was one of the other three, then they would give preference to either using honey, or an ailment that incorporates honey, or a combination of the two, honey and hijama. Honey and hijama, that is honey and blood cupping. Then finally, we have a discussion of cauterization. And cauterization is the use of something that has been heated intensely, it is red hot, and then that part of the body is burnt in order to cure, or it is known to be a cure for something that exists within that region. And so they would, mathalan, if the pain was within the stomach, they would heat some metal till it is intensely hot, and then burn that part of the body. The Prophet ﷺ prohibited cauterization, and some ahadith and some text would appear to permit it, or to allow it. In one text, Prophet ﷺ said, I forbid my ummah from cauterization, while some hold that he said, I do not like to be cauterized. But it was as though the Prophet ﷺ permitted and allowed it. And so the scholars have differed concerning whether cauterization is permitted or not. But regardless of whether one holds it to be permitted or not, those who hold it to be permitted, they say it is the absolute final, or the last final possible attempt at curing an individual, that is to use cauterization. And there is a parable, or a statement that is used by the Arab to this till this day, that is akhiru dawa al-kay, that the last form of medicine is kay, cauterization. and they would use it the same in a similar manner to the way we would use that is the final straw. Yani the parable or the statement, the saying that is the last straw, they would use that statement, akhiru dawa al-kay. Yani that is the final or the last type of yani, remedy. And the yani the thinking or the idea behind cauterization, and of course it is in the hadith of the 70,000 who will not enter Jannah, who will enter Jannah without hisab and reckoning. One of them is الذين لا يكتوون, they don't practice cauterization. The idea behind cauterization is that if a person has an ailment in a particular part of the body, clearly that which has been used previously to cure the individual has not worked. And so what is done then, and what they seek to do, is to use cauterization to heat something red hot and to burn that part of the body. The idea is that the white blood cells that cure ailments and cure wounds and what have you will rush to that part of the body in order to heal the burn. When it rushes to that part of the body in order to heal the burn, of course, a byproduct of that is the ailment, and that sickness that is present there will likewise be healed, or will receive from that outpouring of white blood cells that have rushed to that part of the body in order to seek or in order to cure the problem, the newfound problem that the body has detected, which is this burn. And so the Prophet ﷺ, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentions that one of the reasons that the Prophet ﷺ disliked that is because of the fact that it inflicts intense pain in order to bring about a cure. And in some ways that opposes what it is one seeks from it. And so these then are just some of the, if you like, foundations around, or that the Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he discusses around medicine, around the varying types of cures, and that which has been prescribed and mentioned by the ulama of the past and some of the ulama of the present. Na'am. And so some of the ahadith that return back to specific types of ailments that have specific cures, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he discusses them throughout the rest of Tib al-Nabawi, and perhaps on another session we'll look at discussing some of those ahadith and some of those riwayat. Bi-idhnillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala. But on that note, I believe we'll round up. أسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى يوفقنا وإياكم بما يحبه ويرضاه، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد، وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين، وجزاكم الله خيرا.
الله يبارك فيك، جزاكم الله خير الجزاء على هذه الكلمات الطيبة، ونسأل الله أن يجعلها في ميزان حسناتكم يوم القيامة.
آمين
الله
آمين.
يبارك.
وأنتم
I'm not sure,
كذلك.
are you open to take a couple of questions? We have a couple that came in the chat.
لا بأس. But I've got about 3 minutes till Maghrib.
Allah يفضلكم. So we just have two questions. One, the question that says, has there been any medical knowledge that has been lost due to warfare or some type of loss of property, such as invaders burning books and the likes?
As far as specific examples of that, then I don't know of any specific example. There are, though, books that you'll find are mentioned, or authorships that are mentioned, or authors that are referred to, or within some of the writings of the books that we do have, and we don't actually have those books present. Were they lost in wars? Were they lost due to the varying the crusades and what have you? Allahu ta'ala a'lam. But there is no doubt, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he quotes from individuals, them having a book in medicine is not something that we any longer know of or have. And so as far as specific examples, I don't know of any, but inevitably some of that may and would have been lost. Though the reality is that from the blessings of Allah Azza wa Jalla upon this ummah is that as Ahl al-Ilm, Shaykhana Shaykh Muqbil, he used to mention, ما زال العلماء يأخذ بعضهم عن بعض, that the ulama from this ummah have not ceased taking one from another. They have not ceased taking one from another. And that is that you'll see and that you'll find within many of the works, particularly in hadith, for example, that you may have a book that is lost, such as the Musnad of Baqiya ibn Makhlad, who was a student of Imam Ahmad, the one that used to sneak in when Imam Ahmad was going through, was imprisoned in the during the trial and the fitna of the creation of the Quran. Baqiya ibn Makhlad, he would go to Imam Ahmad, and then over a period, he developed this Musnad that was greater and larger than the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, and that was arranged in, though it is in Musnad form, which is in order of Sahaba, it is arranged in subject matter within each Musnad. The book is lost, unfortunately, but there is no doubt that that which was present within the Musnad of Baqiyat ibn Makhlad was taken. And this is the beauty of the ilm of our deen. Our knowledge is inheritance. It is inherited jilan and jil, ulama and ulama. And so that which is not present or that which may have been lost in a book here, you'll find has been quoted here, has been mentioned there. He has a student that wrote an explanation, mathalan, of Sahih Muslim, and within that explanation there is kalam. So those branches of knowledge, though a specific book may be lost, generally you'll find that the ilm that is present within that book is disseminated across other works because he was the student of ulama who wrote, and their writings, alhamdulillah, many of them have reached us. Naam. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Out of respect for the Sheikh's time, we'll just maybe hold off these last two questions that came. I understand you have to make it to Maghrib, inshallah. Allah
yahfadak wa yabarik feek. Allah reward you. This is, mashallah, an excellent platform, and we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make it beneficial, and Allah Azza wa Jal benefits by way of it. And no doubt Sheikh Raha is من خير أهل السنة في الغرب، نعرفه أخ طيب شيخ فاضل, and we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to bless this forum and to make it beneficial, inshallah. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. حياكم الله.